Hello, my name is Dante, and this is Armored Core 6. Armored Core 6 is a high-speed mecha action game developed by From Software, a video game development company responsible for games that have taken up way too much of my limited free time on this earth. The latest installment in a series that was once abandoned by the developer after they decided medieval fantasy made much more money than futuristic sci-fi.
LA fucking Clippers? What the f-
Armored Core 6 is a standout title that has put the series on the radar for normal people, while empowering longtime fans by giving them exactly what they waited a full decade for. As one of these longtime fans, I feel it is my duty to review the game a year after its release, and to give my honest thoughts. So, let's jump right in. You are Augmented Human C4621, or simply 621 for short. After being woken up and launched from orbit onto a planet called RUBICON 3, you find yourself placed in the middle of a massive conflict between several belligerents, each of varying power with unique characters to represent them. You start with an ambiguous origin, no will of your own, no allies, and a stolen identity, but as you fight your way across the world you inadvertently become a part of the bigger picture and determine the outcome of the Coral War, as well as the fate of the men and women involved in it. With the plot summarized and the stakes explained, let's actually talk about the game instead of reading a fucking Wikipedia article like every other mediocre YouTuber who's reviewed this game already. Like all other Armored Cores, you start off in a basic mech with the bare minimum stats. It's not phenomenal, it's not revolutionary, but you have enough firepower to level an entire village. You use your arsenal to wreck MTs and whatever this thing is, and begin your journey to become the savior or destroyer of Rubicon. Zip around the battlefield, light your enemies up with bullets, break their attitude stability to eviscerate them, and do it in whatever AC your imagination can conjure up. This is the essence of Armored Core 6, and to me, it is the essence of the series as a whole. A game is the sum of its parts, and it can be said for Armored Core 6 that every single part that makes up this game is well lubricated and built to last. Let me explain. Shooting stuff and flying around has never been this fun. Even though the game's speed is not as fast as Armored Core 4 or For Answer, there is a realistic weight to the machine here that makes this installment feel more fierce than any other title that came before it. To simplify this praise, this is the first mecha action game I've played where I actually feel like I am in complete control of my creation, and any problems that arise are simply from my own incompetence while piloting my AC. This is why within 2 hours of playing this game, I was in love with it, and I was excited for what the rest of the game had in store for me. And hoo boy, I was not disappointed. From start to finish, Armored Core 6 provides a thrilling experience that is packed with so much action, you'd think Michael Bay was on the development team giving his 2 cents. The boss fights in this game alone surpass anything the series had done before, and the previous battles from the other games were already iconic in their own right. If this is the direction future games of the series decide to take in terms of how they feel and how they try to make themselves memorable, I think Armored Core has a good outlook for new installments, even without the direction of Hidetaka Miyazaki, who surprisingly did not direct this game as he had done with Armored Core 4 and For Answer. But enough of me praising how this game plays. Anyone who's played a FromSoft game knows they do a lot to make their games feel good, and Armored Core 6 is just another title to add to their resume. Let's actually talk about the structure of this game, which is definitely familiar to veterans of the series. Just like before, the game is linear and mission-based. While there are branching paths and different outcomes depending on the choices you make within these missions, Armored Core 6 does little to deviate from the standards set by previous titles. Is that a bad thing? No. I think a return from a long hiatus warrants a return to form, even if that form isn't necessarily what FromSoft has become famous for. In comparison to other linear titles out today, Armored Core 6 does plenty to make itself engaging. There's hidden dialogue, hidden parts, large spaces to explore, and of course you can tackle and beat each mission with your own playstyle or experiment if you think a different approach will have a better outcome. Speaking of experimentation, customization has returned, and it is just as in-depth as it's always been, with a wide array of parts, weapons, and unique tools to suit your needs and wants. Do you want to be as light as a mosquito but be able to destroy everything in your path? It's possible. Do you want to be a massive tank with cannons the size of your mother? Go ahead. And do you want to fly around endlessly spraying your enemies with so many missiles they can't even fight back against the barrage? There is absolutely nothing stopping you. Builds have never been this crazy looking, although if I have to be honest, there's definitely a little bit of stagnation in effective build variety, especially among casual players. After several games of shotguns being absolute garbage, FromSoft decided it was time for these things to rule the day. In case you're unaware of what I'm talking about the Zimmerman. A mid-game shotgun which trivializes the game's difficulty because dual-wielding the damn things destroys just about everything the game throws at you that isn't designed to resist normal weapon damage. I would complain more about this, but it wouldn't be a FromSoft game if they didn't have a completely unbalanced playstyle in the game for players to abuse. And also, even though the Zimmermans have been memed to death, they've been fixed with post-launch patches, but they still exist as a reminder that the game's balancing team might have fallen asleep while the gun was being tested. Shotgun rant aside, Armored Core's customization truly is king. I feel like this is the coolest ACs have ever looked, and the arsenal has some unique tools which makes me excited for future innovation in the series. To complement your build, you also have Core Expansions, a new feature of the series that enables you to use unique skills in combat either offensively or defensively. Remember Assault Armor? That is back in all of its high risk, high reward glory, along with some brand new gimmicks such as Pulse Armor and Terminal Armor, which enables you to really push your AC to the limits by granting yourself a second wind. I have seen and performed insane feats via a combination of different AC parts, unique weapons, and powerful core expansions. So despite Armored Core 6 essentially playing on rails like any other linear mission-based action game, there's plenty of cool tricks you can do on the rails you're riding on, which is more than most games can say nowadays. And if that isn't enough to keep even the most deranged gamer attached, there's plenty of atmosphere that should stimulate your patrician mind. By utilizing attention to detail and a plotline with twists and turns that keeps the player engaged, FromSoft has managed to forge a world in the Armored Core series that is just as unforgettable as the last few. Armored Core has never had such beautiful set pieces, and pretty much every single mission has an additional detail you can miss if you get too distracted by the action or by the environment. I knew this game was on a whole other level on the mission Eliminate V7, where I had to ambush and quietly dispatch an enemy AC. There is not one, but 3 hidden interactions on this mission alone. You get one for sneaking up on the guy undetected and confusing him, one for attacking him while he begs for his life, and one for shooting him in the back and killing him instantly after agreeing to spare his life. Imagine this spread out across a full-length game, and you have an extraordinary experience that rewards your inner Curious George. And if you really are the most jaded, unwashed gamer, the writers over at FromSoft made sure to write a plot and characters that are so engaging, I literally have to create a whole section in this video dedicated to the story of this game. Armored Core 6's story is not as complicated as the likes of Elden Ring or Dark Souls, or even some earlier installments in the series, but just because something is simple doesn't mean it can't be compelling. I mean, the initial setting is compelling enough. You're literally a slave with a master, forced to obey his commands and carry out orders even if they seem questionable. Along the way, you make some new friends, acquire a girlfriend who exists solely in your head, and change your once cold handler into a sentimental old man who genuinely cares about you. Rubicon will warm your heart, but it will also shatter it into a million pieces, as this wouldn't be a From Software game or even an Armored Core game without a smidgen of tragedy and betrayal. This is one emotional roller coaster I really don't suggest missing out on. Buddy. No one ever said a mecha action game needs a good story, especially one that already has stellar gameplay, but the fact Armored Core 6 came out swinging with one is proof that the developers really did create this with their heart and soul. Rusty, Ire, Walter, Carla, Chatty, Michigan, Iguazu, Snail. There's very few characters here that are forgettable, and the major ones all have moments of their own that make them iconic. Whether it be a friend, a mentor, a rival, or even just a straight up villain, every single pilot and supporting character on Rubicon has a story and drive of their own, which makes them surprisingly human, even when they're not. To complement these characters and the moments they have, FromSoft made sure to return with something the series has always been known for. A killer fucking soundtrack. Kota Hoshino and FromSoft's sound team understood the assignment. While I would argue this game's sound is a bit different from the last two games in terms of experimentality, the few tracks that are classic Armored Core hits so good, it makes up for this game being different in this regard. Even a whole year after the game's release, I still listen to Rusted Pride whenever I lift weights because the song is just so stimulating. I feel it actually makes me work out harder. This game's music being pleasurable to listen to is important, because if you plan to get your money's worth, you're going to be hearing a few songs over and over again. What do I mean by this? Well, Armored Core 6 has 3 unique endings, which are all required for 100% completion. How do you acquire these endings? Well, you're gonna have to beat the game 3 times to pay attention to the choices you make. There's the obligatory save the world ending, the standard destroy everything ending, and the what the fuck is going on ending. Each climax is enjoyable in its own right, but if I had to nip at the game for any one thing, it would definitely be how repetitive it feels having to clear the game so many times to get these endings. While the game does throw in a few different missions for each path, and the third playthrough will have you experiencing unique content that differs greatly from your first 2 runs, I felt myself wishing there was a greater degree of branching content, more akin to how Armored Core 4 Answer was structured. That being said, once you acquire the parts you need for a good build and become skilled in the game's mechanics, it's no problem beating the game 2 more times after your first playthrough to reach the other endings, because at that point, your AC will be strong enough to make previously difficult missions quite trivial. And I guess that brings me to a question pretty much anyone asks about a FromSoft game. Is Armored Core 6 hard? No. But yes, I think Armored Core 6 is one of the easier installments in the franchise. It's challenging but fair, and the addition of repair kits and resupplies in each level has made the game's mission-based format more accessible than ever before. The reason for my mixed answer is because the game actually used to be harder on release, but a lot of crying from Polygon journalists and tourists in the community made it so they nerfed a few aspects of the campaign. I believe this change was unnecessary, because if a glue-eating troglodyte like me can beat Baltia's pre-nerf, that means anyone can. But I'll take anything that enables more people to get into Armored Core. God knows the series is going to need it if it hopes to survive further into the 21st century. Despite the game's campaign being altered to stop filtering newcomers of the series, the PvP that Armored Core is known for has returned in full force, enabling veterans to pwn noobs in ways they never could before.
The difference between the games, you guys were streaming. I'm like, oh.
It's always barrels of fun to try wacky builds against your friends and other players. I feel like this wouldn't be a complete game without the addition of multiplayer. I am slightly disappointed Territories did not return from Armored Core 5, as I think Armored Core 6's setting would have been perfect to have some kind of ongoing conflict mode between Balaam and Arquebus fueled by player activity. But considering everything else we got, I can't be too sore in the ass about this. Something I can be sore in the ass about is the lack of cooperative multiplayer, which the last 3 games in the franchise had. Fortunately, there is a mod that rectifies this mistake, but it was totally broken last time I tried to use it, so if you plan on having jolly cooperation on Rubicon, it's best to wait until it's fixed. My small complaints about multiplayer and difficulty aside, I truly believe Armored Core 6 is as close to a real mecha game as we're going to get for years to come. It's intense, emotionally engaging, and a masterpiece in a franchise full of masterpieces. I know I'm worshipping this game pretty hard, but you have to understand that this is a franchise that was lying dormant for years, and it returned like it had spent all those years in the hyperbolic time chamber getting stronger. Yeah, I have the biased point of view of a sentimental fan of the series, but I also know a great game when I play one, and Armored Core 6 stands tall among a sea of mediocrity. I love this game, and I think everyone should give it a shot. If not for the challenges along the way that'll make you feel accomplished, and the well-engineered combat, at least do it for a story that'll make you feel alive. I had hoped for a new Armored Core game for the longest time, and to see a new entry live up to the expectations of the fans and create a whole new generation of skilled ravens is truly a sight to behold. All I ask now is for FromSoft to put the older games on PC, so newcomers and veterans alike can enjoy the whole franchise without resorting to emulation or other difficult means. But I'm happy regardless that at least one game in the series has freed itself from the console shackles. In conclusion, Armored Core 6 is proof that Armored Core still lives, and it's a reminder that the series earned its crown in the mecha action genre not just by showing up, but by being the best of the best. Anyways, this is Handler Dante signing off. See you next time when I make a better video than this. Hopefully.